On today's episode of the Sales Factor podcast, we have Morten He is the VP of Sales at a company called Holbar. Now, he's a proven track record, successfully building and growing sales teams in various different markets. Now, his expertise lays in sales methodology, sales management, customer success management, business development, and then actually opening up new markets and go-to strategies. So I'm super excited to have him on the show. So let's get into it. Morten,
Hey, how are
what's the
you?
biggest... Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. It's the sun is shining, and I love it. I love it. It puts a smile on everybody's face. But what is the biggest challenge or the biggest problem in sales that you're finding right now?
That is a big question. I wish I had like the ideal answer. I think it's easy, to point external, to point to all of the factors of stuff going on in the world. I mean, we've seen different things happen to us, to everyone, over the course of the last years. But I think that if we want to, you know, put the focus internally, I would say again there's several factors that comes to mind, but one of the biggest thing might be like a thing around overcomplicating, over engineering the sales process, making it very, very, difficult, time consuming, and not very efficient to drive sales for any BDRs, AEs, sales leaders, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. Having a simplified process where you're in control of it makes all the difference, right? I've definitely been
It
in
de-
places.
it
Yeah, I've
definitely
definitely been
can.
in. Yeah, absolutely. It's especially with like the world we live in now, where there's so much external programs and technology and everything that can, just be bolted onto your sales process can actually, overcomplicate it. But tell me more about it from your perspective then. Why is it such a big problem in your opinion?
I would say so. So first of all, I might want to say as well that I'm not an expert in the field. I have, plus 10 years of experience, and I have my opinion around things.
Yeah.
And I think that what you actually mentioned, combined with the fact that there is no silver bullet, there's no jumping the fence on this, and there's no one size fits all type of companies in terms of sales process, is where the biggest issue lies, because there is so many, you know, tech solutions out there that you can add to your tech stack that will automatically just build on, the complexity on the things that you do. And with a shaky foundation of stuff, I mean, it's just a disaster waiting to happen, complicating things more and more. So, in line with what you say, simplifying things, you could say go back to basics, but that not necessarily where, I think that the silver bullet is or the magic is hidden. Um,
Yeah.
so I think that there's like several factors playing into why we do see these overcomplicated, over-engineered sales process. And in reality, I think that having a super complex solution or a super complex process actually means that you have a underdeveloped approach to your go-to-market in terms of sales, because you're not, efficient. You are killing creativity with your team, and there's so many, negative side effects that will occur internally in your org when you have this overcomplicated approach.
Yeah, absolutely. As you brought me back to just, I guess, keeping it simple, and there's multiple ways of doing that. But do you think that because there's so many different solutions out there in terms of different technology that you can bolt onto your sales process? Because I think there's two camps, right? You've got your own internal process of go to market and lead generation, that stuff, but then you've got tech suites and there's hundreds of different tools out there that you can use. So do you think it's the tech stack that overcomplicates the process, or do you think it's actually just the sales process that's overcomplicated, or is it a
I think
combination of both?
I think it's both. I think it's both. And
Hmm.
there is again, several factors on each of the corners that you can unfold. But I would say that one of the most obvious things might be the tech stack of the issue as well. That it's so easy to get blinded by all of the shiny objects out there promising you like 50% increase in sales and hit rate and closed won deals, where in reality that's not the case. I mean, you need to work more closely with your own sales process, and then
Mm,
overcomplicating the sales process itself in the core becomes a negative side effect of having too much tech stack, involved.
mm,
Um, and actually, I do see, I wouldn't say a trend, but I have heard from a couple of peers that are actually, because of the economical climate that we're in right now, are cutting down on the tech stack that they have available, going, as they frame it, going back to basic.
yeah,
I don't necessarily seeing it as going back to basic, but just simplifying things with having, focus on what really matters, right?
yeah,
Um, and I also think that with all of the tech that is available, the sales leaders also, we hold a massive responsibility in overcomplicating things and not doing things, in a simplified approach, because we
mm,
track and measure and monitor all of the different things that these wonderful, beautiful platforms provide of insights and data,
mm,
without, having thought about, is it actually important for my organization, for my customers, to drive value, to drive revenue, to drive impact towards the
yeah,
customers. So I think it is on both sides of the
both
fence.
sides. Yeah, absolutely. And even with my own, outreach process, go to market, I've got technology suites that I use and stuff like that. And I've definitely had my fair share of emails coming through saying, we can guarantee you 300%, ROI in 2 months. I was like, come on. Well, I
Yeah.
wish. I mean, if they were doing that, they wouldn't need to sell it. But
Yes.
okay, so looking at like just a process then. So say you were coming into a new business, or even speak about whole bar, and you were looking at the go-to-market strategy, laying out the process. Like, what what does good look like in your opinion? If we were to like strip back and have a really simple process that's easily followable to collect data to see what's working, what's not. Like, if you could just paint the picture as to what you feel is a good process to bring new clients in.
So, so a good process, again, it varies from company to company, and so I would typically work in the mid market range of sales, so not on the enterprise level of the landscape. And I would say a the, what good looks like, it's a process that everyone can follow, that is easy to understand, and that gives each of the sales reps creativity to add their own personality into it. um, because I mean, we become our own, worst enemy if we just want to replicate each and everyone to do the exact same thing. Breaking down to territory and different accounts is not necessarily won by doing the same thing each and every one of the reps on the team. So you need to have creativity. You need to be able to do things on your own, but still have a process to follow. So again, there is no silver lining. There is no easy way to do this. It actually takes incredibly hard work, and it's not something that is you know done overnight. So now I've only been with Hallbar for 3 months. I still haven't figured it out, um, and I'm still working on each and every day. Being on the trenches, figuring out what is working, what is not working. Um, so just to speak about Hallbar and what I did there, was, I mean, I cut down the sales deal stages from 9 to 5, um,
Mm,
added, multiple touch points, channels into the sequences that we were using, not only email heavy sequences, easy scripts with a lot of freedom to be creative and be your own voice when you call,
mm,
but also you know focusing on the ICP. So what we typically forget when we talk about sales process, um, tech stack, is that we do that for the sake of internal purposes. But what we really need to do is that we need to focus on the customers, the prospects, and what is important for them. They don't care about that if we have 5 or 9 deal stages. They don't care about how many different variations of the scripts that we have. They just care about, can we solve a problem? Can we remove a pain point that they have and help them progress and move forward, save time, earn more money, whatever the case is. So we typically forget that when we talk about all of these sales process and different shiny objects that you can add to the tech stack, right?
yeah, absolutely. I think it's just to unpack what you said, like going from a process of 9 steps, if you will, down to 5. Like that must have been a bit of a like. Did you see that straight off the bat when you joined? It's just like, right, take that out, take that out, take that out. We can condense that or merge that. Like, how did you unpack a process?
So the how I unpacked it was that I was kind of, looking at, again, looking at the ICP, looking at what kind of pains were we able to solve for the prospects, um, what kind of personas was typically affected by those pain points, and try to attach that to specific use cases, and then assign it to a methodology that was simple enough. So we have a fairly transactional sales cycle. Um, so something like Medic or something larger than that does not necessarily fit into the motion of how we should define the process in order to deliver value. So I looked at a methodology that was simple enough to compare that to the sales process, or put into the sales process, and then kind of looked at the different stages that was already there, and then just immediately cut out all of this stuff that was there for the sake of us only, and then looking at where there was mutual gains in the process. So all of the steps were is designed specifically to deliver value for the prospects and the customers. Other than that, it's just, I mean, you're just being a pain in the ass. Sorry for my language. If you don't deliver value with your activity. So I'm not opposed to have more activities. Sometimes it can actually make sense to add more
Yeah.
activities into your sales process if it's designed in a way where you deliver value at the
Mm.
same time. Then it's a, I hate the term win-win, but then it's at least close to something that is mutual beneficial, I would say.
Yeah, if you're delivering value specifically to, I guess, the champions in the business or the right person, like they should, look to then book in a meeting, because if that pain point is big enough on their list of things that they need to like solve, then yeah, it makes sense. And I think you're absolutely right. There is a fine line between chasing and pushing and stuff like that. And to your point earlier about going out and delivering value to people, not everyone's gonna respond the right way. In
No.
in terms of like, if you're just sitting there just doing banging out a ton of emails and expecting everyone to come back, it's not, it will work, yeah, great, but not for everybody. Other people might want to be, on LinkedIn, follow up on a voice note, a video with, there's even tools out there. If you can get their mobile number with a WhatsApp, you can send them WhatsApp, or, then pick up the phone, God forbid, cold calling, but you can, but there's multiple things to do. So if we looked at the multi-channel approach, and we are looking at the start of the process right now.
Yeah.
So you've defined your ICP, you know, kind of like what their pain points and a variation may be, but how do you provide value throughout? Have you found like throughout that five-stage process about going out to them, and do correct me if I'm wrong, with the five stages, it is five stages that you go through to then close. Is
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Yeah, cool.
Exactly.
So with that, like, how are you providing value throughout that process? Have you got things that work along the way?
So again, this is a very, very simplified early stage process for me. I might, things might change over time, and right now it's so this is definitely not going to be the solution and a route for everyone. But what I've found to work is that obviously the multi-channel, implementation was a no-brainer for me because I mean, we don't have to go into that, but there's no point of just spray and pray emails and see what comes back. That is a more of a marketing type of
Sure.
assignment with their ads and lead gen activities. So I would say in the early stage of the process that we have defined right now, we need to understand their situation. We need to understand what kind of pains is status quo, you know, doing for them. What is the impact of removing those pain points for them? Um, so that is like the initial phase. Then we go into more of a scoping type of uh, process, delivering how can our solution being tailored so that it solves their initial pain and drives value for them. And then we have obviously some negotiation and some closing. So that's kind of like the three like overall topics of the five stages. And sometimes it's we are in such a hurry to to get from first contact to close, but
Mm,
sometimes you actually need to have a more thorough, I wouldn't call it investigation, but a more spend more time early stages of the sales process to really understand and help the customers make the right decision for them on moving forward and progressing their business. Otherwise, you just, when you get further down the funnel, you have churn, you have you know a lot of load on support and unhappy customers, no
yeah.
reference or use cases. So it just makes so much sense to spend a little bit more time early phases of the process to make sure you really build out a mutual understanding. Is this the right solution? And then
Mm,
the next for me is even though most want to spend more time in the negotiation and closing phase, I spend more time in the beginning of the sales process because that's where the value lies for all stakeholders.
yeah. It's really like, and not being afraid to turn people away if it's not right. I
Mm,
think that's where people potentially can go wrong as well. And that only comes from a really deep dive discussion and really understanding if it is going to be for them, and why, and what's the impact, and how is it going to solve the pain point for them, and where they're going to be in 6 months, 10 months time, and really addressing that on all levels. Because sometimes you got multiple people on a call, and they've all got different levels where potential different visions of their own careers and where the business is going, etc. But and I think then if you're not doing that deep dive, that discussion piece to really uncover, I guess, the need and selling back to the need, like I feel that people get buyer's remorse because they
yep,
get chugged along the sales process, and then it's just like, cool, yeah, people get excited,
yep,
and then they buy, and then they're like, oh crap, things might not um plan out the way they initially thought in that excitement. So I
yep.
think that just shows that you care about them, and I think that goes a long way. So do you work alongside uh, the marketing team or anyone internally to help you push out value along the way with like case studies or making sure that stuff
So
along the
I've
way, or is it yeah?
definitely done that in the past. At Hallbar, we are still so early stage that we're not quite that mature yet, and we still have a lot of ground to cover. I mean, we are really a startup with all of the pros and cons that and the benefits that comes along with that. But I would still say, that pushing out, you know use cases that resonates with the personas that experience the pain that we know is there, is still something that both marketing can do on their channels and in their cadences and their lead gen activities. At the same time, it's also what we at least are supposed to do in the sales process when doing cold outreach. And don't spend time on explaining who you are in an email or on a phone call. That's irrelevant for everyone. But
Yeah.
focus on what you can actually help them solve and see if that is relevant or not. So driving, I would not say driving urgency, but uncover urgency, but and also qualify if it's even a mutual fit to continue the conversation. So you drive high intent pipeline. I mean, there is so much focus on,
Mm,
and I get that there is times where it might make sense to have a more hard focus on driving activities. And, you really need, I mean, you're so early stage, you need to build pipeline at all cost, and no matter who it is and how warm the lead is. But take a step back and focus on driving high intent pipeline, um, and pipeline with high probability to close is a far more sustainable approach for everyone to do. I know it, and it sounds so easy and so, yeah, of course, everyone should do that. But it's obviously very difficult, to do, because, and also because every business is different.
mm,
Each, persona, customer, prospect. I mean, it's different on all levels. So you can't really just go to a webinar, see what HubSpot is up to. They are now it's like the flywheel. Everyone should do
yeah.
that, and then you start to implement that, and then we go back to the overcomplicating stuff, and you misalign your go-to-market motions, across the board when you implement something that is not necessarily a fit for your customer. It's not a fit for your business. I mean, your ACV is way too high to the flywheel actually to work. The flywheel is more towards PLG type of
Mhm.
motions. So you have to be aligned on how design your go-to-market motion strategy and business strategy as a whole.
Yeah, and I think I don't want to put words into your mouth, but why do you think that when if you've got an SDR going out to book in meetings and they're not necessarily fully qualifying from a business perspective, it looks great. We got all these meetings, you can see the potential revenue, the forecasting prediction is probably not what it should be. But why do you think potential SDRs out there, like, yes, they want to get meetings in, but like why did they not qualify to it or have a bit of a deeper discussion? Do you think it's like everyone's just focused on that result of getting the meeting and it's KPI and you have to get this meeting in, or like why do you think people just like load up without qualifying the prospects?
That because that's so easy to do. I mean, that's so. I mean, again, back to my early, yeah, I think it was comment I had around. Also, there's a, we make mistakes in leadership as well. I mean, that if that is what we measure, if that is what they are told, entire time, that you need to have X amount of meetings every week. And of course, there is a math to the whole to the whole sales game that you need to have this many meetings in order to hit your revenue number. But there's also other metrics that you can look at. I mean, volume is just one. Then there is time metrics, and then there is conversion metrics. So what kind of adjustments can you do that will have like a more that will have a compound effect on the results that are higher than just adding more meetings. So I would never blame any SDRs for doing that because they're just simply doing how their leadership are, telling them to do their day-to-day work. And it's I think I'm not pointing any fingers to anyone or at anyone, but it's a default because it's just easy to do. That's a no-brainer. I mean, we are, 10 meetings behind. Go call more guys instead of looking at time metrics and conversion metrics. How can we iterate our approach so they move either faster through the funnel or we convert more? Then we actually might be in a position where we need less meetings in order to hit and overachieve our
Yeah.
numbers.
No, absolutely. And the reason why I was asking that is I've definitely fallen into that trap myself. And it's not pointing fingers at anyone, but if if it is from the pressure from the business and they're looking at KPIs and metrics just purely on end result, which then funnels into forecasting. Like I used to be like, you'll get a meeting a day, meeting a day, meeting a day. But even if that meeting didn't happen,
Hmm.
it was never recorded that meeting never happened. It was always recorded that I booked that meeting in. So it's definitely, I think, I really like your point around there around conversion and time metrics. Like, I've never really sat back and thought about, okay, well, let's look at the meetings that have converted and why did they convert? What did we potentially
Yeah,
do different with them? Did we have a longer conversation? Was it more of a deep dive? Did we provide them more relevant case studies and user studies that they could really see the benefit of using our product? So,
yeah.
good. No, I think it's definitely something to look into. How did you Has that been something from your side that you've always ingrained in terms of focusing on conversion and time metrics as opposed to end result?
Um, that's not, I'm no different than anyone else.
Yeah.
I mean, I've made the mistakes as well. I've done what you did. I fall into all of the traps that you can possibly fall into as a upcoming and growing sales leader, making all of the mistakes, but also learned along the way. And I think that's the important part, right? I mean, no one is perfect. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone just needs to own their mistakes and reflect on what went wrong. I mean, when you want to improve time, in stages and or conversion, you look at what went right and how find a common, red thread that you can find others like that or replicate what went well. You need to do the
Mm,
same thing when things are not working, and figure out what where can you improve, what went wrong, was it me? I mean, and I again, I've also been in that position where all of the evaluation was on the reps and no, self, looking yourself in the mirror at all. And I think that is hugely important to do as a sales leader if you want, to grow your team, if you want to grow yourself, if you want to hit your numbers, you need to develop and grow as a leader yourself. And
mm,
as I said before, no one is perfect. We all aim for the perfect call, for having the perfect one-on-one, doing the perfect demo, having the perfect negotiation chat. The reality is it doesn't exist, right?
mm.
I mean, there's mistakes here and there all of the time. You just, but you need to make them as well, and have be in a place where you are allowed, quote unquote, to make the mistakes as well.
Yeah, and sometimes overcomplicating the sales process can be looked at as a quote in quotes mistake for you to learn from, to condense it, or to see, like, is it overbearing? Or are we actually getting the results based on it?
Yeah,
And I think I've definitely made a lot of mistakes. But when I was running a recruitment team, like it's one of the best things I thought I ever told one. I want you to make as many mistakes as possible because it's the only way. It's one of the best ways to learn, right? I would rather someone. This is like 10 years ago. Pick up the phone 100 times a day versus someone picking up 20, because that person that picks up 100 times is going to make more mistakes, fall on the face, and mess up. But their learning curve will probably be a lot steeper over a 3 6 month period than it will be, just doing 20 calls a day. So I'm
Yeah.
all for making mistakes. I mean, I make mistakes every day. I mean, I'll not tell you about the story yesterday. That's for off air.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough.
But
Can't wait to now. Now you got me intrigued, though.
yeah, oh mate, yeah. Anyway, the emotional roller coaster of sales. That's what I'm talking about. Do you feel then within like a sales team? Because I feel then sometimes it can be a lot of pressure put on SDRs to go out, qualify, lead gen, know your ICP, pain points, and stuff like that. Are you seeing a change in the market where a lot of AEs now, if we talk like last year, a lot of AEs were just doing closes, whereas now they're coming more into side by side with the SDRs, working on outreach strategy, going out for outbound. Are you finding AEs are having much more of a foothold in doing that alongside?
Oh, I sure hope so.
Mm,
I think I mean, to be fair, I mean, I have the absolute utmost respect for any SDR, BDRs out there.
mm,
And I think, to be honest, I think that AEs, I'm probably going to get a lot of AEs on my back here, but have to some extent been lazy for the last years because they have just been fed with pipeline from marketing, from SDRs, and not
mm,
having to do any prospecting yourself. It also goes into leadership. I have been in not that long ago, been in the same bucket and made those mistakes of not being a leader who was prospecting, maybe not every day, but at least every week, several
mm.
times per week or several days per week. I think is you know a good level to have. If you're not a prospecting AE, if you're not a prospecting leader, I don't think that you'll necessarily stick around for that long, because those who actually do will get
Mm.
ahead of the curve for learning, growth, development, everything in between. They'll just be
Yeah,
far more ahead of anyone else. Um, so yeah, I think I think you I think time has pushed that development as well,
yeah,
and AEs need to be more full cycle sales reps AEs than they have been for the last 2, 3, maybe 4 years. Um, so definitely.
yeah. And it is part of the reason, I guess, I left my previous role and started my own business. So I was BDM there, AE if you call it. Like I was closing deals and stuff like that, and then I was coaching the program. And we had a team of five SDRs, and yeah, they were booking in meetings, and it was great. But I had took my foot off the pedal and not done any prospecting as much as what I was when I was like the only SDR in the team, building the pipeline, looking at go to market strategy, all that stuff. Um, and yeah, definitely got lazy. Did yeah, there was like days it was like diary was packed. Other days it was kind of sporadic, but hour and a half lunch and 2 hours lunch, and just like okay, cool, got. And then the meeting inevitably probably doesn't happen, and then you're like back into to square one. But yeah, I think
Yeah.
from speaking to a lot of other VP of sales and head of sales, a lot of AEs are starting now to get more involved into it. And I think the reason why I was asking that question is I think that ties into the simplifying the process, because if you've
Yeah.
got your SDRs, your A's, your leader, all on the same sort of front lines. Obviously, got different jobs and stuff to do, but if you got a simple process where it's constantly putting value in front of people, front load in the first call with a load of information dissection, discussion around the product, and really is it going to be beneficial to them? think that's got like it makes the A's job a lot easier then to close and push through the sales process. So
Absolutely,
good. Listen,
100% agree.
yeah, I think loads of stuff to unpack there in terms of your process and what is overcomplicated. I think a lot of people will definitely agree. Um, and it's good like to open up the bonnet and really look under the process to see what you can strip out and take away, which you may or may not need right now. But you've been in sales for a long time.
Yeah, 12,
What would you?
13 years, something like that.
Wow, I'm sure you saw a lot of change from back then, Rolodexes and Glengarry, Glen Ross, coffees for closers,
Yes.
and all that stuff. But what would you say is the biggest highlight in your sales career so far?
I think I I've been asked that question before, and I don't know why, but it's so difficult for me to answer. I have heard other, highlighting big logos that they close, promotions that they have celebrated, and that has all been part of my journey as well. But really, that has not been the highlights of my career. I think that the highlights of my career have been the places I have worked, where the culture, the team, the people around you have really been. I mean, of course, it's not like close friendships or anything necessarily, but it could be anything like that. But it's all of the time periods where it has been fun to go to work, also without the results, paying out.
Mm,
That has been, the highlights of my career, I would say. And that has been in various constellations and in different companies. So it's not like this logo or this partnership I closed or this $1 million deal I did or
mm,
relocating to the US. It has been all of the times where it has been fun because of the team and the people around you. And I think that's something that is not stressed enough. I mean, there can be, a blue ocean market, a solid product, and all of the great stuff around, good
yeah,
pricing, so many leads. But if you're working with people you don't like, then what is it all worth, right? I
yeah,
mean, it has to be fun, otherwise you can't keep going.
yeah. I think fun, like-minded people that are in the trenches with you doing the
Yeah,
job, right? They feel the ups, the downs with you, and it's almost like a squad or a unit going out there to take on the
yeah,
world. But good. Listen, really appreciate your time today and obviously your advice and what you found that works and what people should maybe be thinking about, looking at their own process to take out to, I guess, bring all your clients to the yard.
yeah.
But for
Love
people
it.
that don't, yeah, for people that don't know you, Morton, and potentially looking at this podcast, do you want to just give us a high level view of, whole bar, the business, if you're hiring right now, how people should contact you.
I mean, the start with the last piece of the question. I mean,
Yeah.
I can always be reached on LinkedIn. I am trying to be as active as possible on the platform, dropping content occasionally. But that's the place where you can find me. Um, and Holbar is, I mean, we are on a very, very interesting journey. The space that we are in are actually seeing a lot of, development and consolidation on some very, very big players. So there's a lot of very, very exciting things happening. And basically, what we do is that we help people selling experiences. So that can be, flying an air balloon, doing scuba diving, stuff like that,
Mm,
with a booking and administration platform. So we help them get more bookings with less administration. So
nice.
that's basically what Hallbar is all about. And we don't have any active, job posts out there, but stay tuned because we will have eventually and also very soon. So we are, going to market. I would like to have a bit more answers on the sales process, and have, get a bit, punch myself a bit more with approaching the wrong prospects, with the wrong messaging before I ask anyone else to join me,
Mm.
as well. We are a small team currently on that are doing that on a daily basis, though. But before adding, I would love to have some more answers, so basically I can set people up for success, right?
Yeah.
So that's what it's all about.
It's a sign of good leader, right? Testing everything before, because last thing you want them to do is come in, start like, treading water and sinking. Where if you got a process lined out, it's like this works. I need more data on this, try this, and being
Yes.
allowing them the creativity to add the
I
personality in,
mean,
like you said. So
I would definitely not, offer anyone the experience that I had in the early days of my sales career. I mean, it worked out well, but I mean, the sink or swim kind of
yeah,
kind of mindset is it doesn't, it's not sustainable, and it's not a it's not a good approach to have, I believe. So I would love
I
to
definitely,
have a bit more
yeah.
answers before.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I've been in that same situation myself, like thrown into the deep end. Right, no one
Yeah.
knows you, and again, I've done it this year as well. Like into a brand new market, no candidates, no clients, nobody knows me, and
No.
it's sink or swim time. But hopefully, I'm doing one stroke at a time. So
I mean, I just as a closing comment here, because it's actually it's that could be a whole topic on its own for another guest of yours, if anyone is interested in that as well. Because I actually did it with Holbar as well. I mean, I've been with the team for, I don't know, maybe a week, maybe two, and then I started cold calling. No, less than a week. I just started cold calling, talking to people, figuring out, getting punched in the face, um, what works, what doesn't work, learning the language. I mean, there was only one way to do that when you are a startup with, 30 customers. There is a limit to the amount of data that you can have access to.
mm,
So I wouldn't ask others to do that, but I am doing it, for the purpose of educating others entering Hallbar at some point. But
mm,
it's not fun. I mean, I would lie if I said it was fun, but I know that there is a purpose to it, so I'm happy to do it. And I can also see now from the past experience that it the learning curve was just exponential, as you said before. I mean, there is, if you are in, you know if you have the right mindset towards it, there's definitely pros to it, but there's way more cons than there's pros, for sure.
yeah. I think you can't knock it on its head. I think the thing is the time aspect of it, because I remember doing it as well for like 3 or 4 hours one day, and I literally didn't get through to nobody. I didn't, and I think that the hardest part for me was I didn't have numbers. I
Yeah.
entered a brand new market. I didn't have data, so I had to go out, and LinkedIn was like one of my lifelines to go out and speak to people. So yeah, I had to get creative. Even our relationship, talking about the podcast and all sorts of stuff. Like what I didn't want to do was just come in like I'm a recruiter. I want to build a team. It's like that's not going to get me anywhere. So
No.
it's like, okay, how do I provide value? How do I actually speak to people on a level that is actually good conversation rather than just going for the transactional sell,
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
which is fun. I'm still going. So,
Yeah.
but good. Listen, thanks very much for your time today, Morton. I will see you all on the next one.
Thank you, Aaron.
Great episode there with Morton. Absolutely loved that. It's such a big problem that I think a lot of people potentially are facing around overcomplicating, over engineering the sales process. It becomes messy, becomes you're spread too thin. You're adding tech stack, automation, AI, all these different things that are great, but do you really need them? Simplifying the process, keeping it really simple so that you're on top of it and you can actually manage it, I think is a better way to go, rather than trying to chuck all these things at it to make it smoother. He also talked about like, yes, having a simple process, but really the context of your ICP. So knowing who your ICP is, yes, absolutely. But front loading the first call, that discussion, that discovery call, making sure that your product is a good fit for them, uncovering the needs, but spending the time up front so that it helps with forecasting. It helps with prediction of deals coming through for the business. He talked about throughout the process of reducing 9 stages down to five. How do you constantly providing value? And I really think it comes down to that first initial discovery call with uncovering the need, uncovering do they really need it, so that you know what value to provide them throughout the process. So it's just going to increase the likelihood of them buying at that time. So really appreciate his time going through some examples of what he's been through and what he's doing right now at Whole Bar. Super excited to see where you guys are in the next year or so. And I will see you all on